It is Wednesday, July 27, 2016. Gene is pleased to bring you today's edition of the Government News Brief. Welcome. In the news, Sustainable Hinterland Housing Project to begin in October, West Coast Demerara Sea Defense Project completed, government still pursuing Youth Investment Fund, and dust pollution issue addressed in Linden. Stay tuned as we bring you the details of these and other stories. Thank you for staying with us. I am Azim Khan. Here are the details. Phase 2 of the Sustainable Housing for Hinterland project is scheduled to commence in October. Sanika Thorne has the details.
In an interview with the Government Information Agency this morning, Minister within the Ministry of Communities, Valerie Sharp-Patterson, detailed the components of the US $3.2 million project, which targets 4 villages in Region 1 and 8 villages in Region 9.
This Phase 2 has to do with roof replacement of some houses and building of new structures. So the people in those villages will benefit. This project is supposed to commence somewhere around October. We are currently waiting on the representative from the IDB to come, and they're due here in October. They will be going in along with our personnel to these 2 villages to meet the village captains and the village councils.
Minister Patterson explained that the officials are expected to engage in consultation with the village council and residents on the design and implementation of the project.
It has to be the people's decision as to what style of design of roof, design of house, because it's always better to have the people's choice. And so after that, they will now do the selection of the villagers who will be beneficiaries of this program. And the building will commence.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Communities will be working closely with the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs to execute the Government of Guyana Housing Development Program in several hinterland regions. Minister Patterson advised that discussions are ongoing on the establishment of housing schemes in Mabruma Region 1, Madia Region 8, and Lethem Region 9. This, she says, is necessary since the population in these areas are increasing. For the Government News Brief, Sanika Thorne reporting.
Harlem and Rhymesek residents will now be free from saltwater intrusion as the sea and river defense in these areas has been rebuilt. Find out more in this report.
Residents of Harlem, Bauxite are now benefiting from proper sea and river defense. The sea defenses in those areas had long been in a critical state from the destruction of mangroves resulting in rapid erosion. Project engineer, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Dennis Ramsing explains that 200 meters of rip-rap work was done on the sea defense.
As a result of the rapid erosion between Crane and Rumsek, government took intervention of doing riprap construction in phases to arrest the erosion problem. However, prior to that rapid erosion, the site between Crane and Wallace Delight were earmarked for works under the CDB because about more than 6 months ago we had experienced rapid erosion, loss of mangrove in Crane area.
Additionally, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure also has ongoing maintenance works on the sea and river defenses at Cornelia Ida.
Here we are at Cornelia Ida. This project is basically done under the local maintenance program where we are doing rehabilitation of the concrete walls. Basically concrete repairs are being done to extend the life of the structure.
Earlier this year, officials from the Ministry of Public Infrastructure and the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, visited the site and found that the sea defense was in a critical state. Similar riprap works have been completed at Orangestein, while works are ongoing at the Waller's Delight Sea Defense. The projects are funded by the Government of Guyana. In the 2016 budget, $1.3 billion has been provided for sea and river defense works. Renata LaFleur for the Government News Brief.
Lindeners have been given much-needed relief from the dust pollution caused by bauxite operations since Bauxite finally took definitive action. Tiffany Rodius reports.
Residents in Wisma and Silvertown were the most affected by the pollution. The worst of the pollution was felt back in 2012. The installation of 2 dust collectors have significantly reduced dust pollution, says a PNUAFC Member of Parliament and Linden resident Odwin Rutherford.
Since the installation of the dust collector, we are far better off in the community. No one has been complaining of recent about the dust in the area.
Many persons suffered respiratory ailments due to the dust, which was generated by the Bauxite plant. Another APNUAFC Member of Parliament, Jermaine Figuera, said the collectors have brought a significant relief.
I myself would have made penned several articles with regards to the effects the community has been facing with regards to the amount of dust that was being exposed to the residents of the community. And I'm happy that that aspect has been addressed.
Bauxite Company Secretary Norman McLean says this has been one of the company's proudest achievements.
You don't even know now when the plant is operating because there's no dust coming through the stack, and that, in my view, from an environmental point of view, from a community point of view, is a very, very important achievement.
After enduring decades of dust pollution, the residents of Silvertown Christiansburg had called on the Ministry of Health and the EPA to investigate the Bauxite plant located in the heart of Linden, which was producing the dust pollution. The 2 dust collectors were installed by Bauxite 4 years ago at a cost of US $8 million. For the Government News Brief, I'm Tiffany Rogers.
The labor market in Guyana is shifting towards the need for more technical employees. Hence, government is working towards the development of technical vocation education training. Details in this report.
Consultations began yesterday between public and private sector stakeholders to find ways of expanding TVET in Guyana. TVET consultant John Seram points out why there is a need for the expansion of TVET.
The need for more TVET training, especially in specialized areas, for example, in mining. Now, a lot of emphasis is being placed on mining. This is something the relevant bodies have to be thinking about. What more can we be doing for the mining sector?
Seram pointed out that there is a need for the establishment of TVET centers in the mining regions. However, for it to be possible, there needs to be finance.
What I have been saying, to develop this, to develop that, institutions in region 1 and 7 calls for money, calls for dollars and cents. Where is the money? Where is the money? Why talk about it when we don't have money to develop the system? So this is where you are coming out with your views as to how we can finance it, TVET programs.
Diana John Baptiste, a stakeholder, made a suggestion as to how TVET can be expanded.
You're looking at certain funding campaigns to get money towards this. I mean, thanks for inviting us, for stakeholders here. We're asking a lot of questions as to what the funding's about, but that image is not out there. I don't see on Facebook, I don't see on social media what TVET is doing. And that might seem small to some people here, but it's the way a lot of people get that information.
Hugh Griffith, a stakeholder for Machinery Corporation MacCorp, suggested one way of securing finances for the expansion of TVET.
I strongly believe that people should pay for education, because when they pay for it, I think that they value it. It's not to marginalize them, but we want to have a system that is in place to facilitate some loan or something that will enable them to have their education, but they must be responsible for the education.
Other stakeholders made recommendations which the TVET consultant assured would be taken into consideration. The next consultation meeting is scheduled to be held within the next 3 weeks. Isaiah Braffett for the Government News Brief.
Government continues to pursue the establishment of the Youth Investment Fund proposed in its last budget. Kadaki Amsterdam reports.
Minister of Finance Winston Jordan says government is still in the process of sourcing finances for the establishment of an entrepreneurial fund aimed to develop a young entrepreneurial class.
At the half year, we had not established such a fund yet because we had gone to a couple of international agencies to get what we call seed money to establish a fund. The procedures are a bit complicated and so on, so we will continue that discussion in the second half.
The Youth Entrepreneurial Fund is touted to be a source of empowering young people to aid in the country's development. Presidential Advisor on Youth Empowerment Aubrey Norton explains.
It is intended to, one, help to create this young entrepreneurial group that we're talking about, to create employment in the form of small business, and to develop the skills, the entrepreneurial skills that are required to make a country develop.
The Minister of Finance assures that government intends to fulfill its promise towards establishing the fund, which will provide startup financing for young entrepreneurs.
I would want to say that we hope before the year is out that we could have a little bit of money voted for the fund. Perhaps if we don't get the money that we are looking for, or a mechanism through which this money can be channeled from the multilateral agencies, then we would look at the possibility we ourselves using a bit of our money to start the fund, even as we continue to pursue the multilateral agencies.
Norton says preparatory work is continuing to ensure youths can take full advantage of the opportunities created through the fund. The government's youth policy details the vision and the funding for youths, and also how this vision will be realized. The policy caters to the needs of youths aged 15 to 35 years, which constitutes over 50% of Guyana's population. Kidaki Amsterdam for Government News Brief.
Those are the reports we covered in today's edition of the Government News Brief. The details of these and other stories can be found on GINA's website. We encourage you to stay updated and subscribe to our website and YouTube channel. All government and other information can be accessed from GINA's website. Join us again tomorrow when we bring you another edition of this, the Government News Brief. Thank you for watching.